How was school for you? I hated it. It was so boring. A teacher up there droning on and on while I had to sit still.
It was kind of like being in jail. And it hasn't changed much since I was a kid. Most American kids are still stuck in their government-assigned schools. What if you bought groceries the way your kids are assigned schools? People would spend to move to the neighborhood with the good grocery store. Crazy as that is, we accept it with public education. Public schools are enough like prison that parents who escape celebrate. Yes! And those who can't escape cry.
Maybe now you wanted to go to that school? Tonight, we celebrate escape. Escape from the suffocating government monopoly.
And now, the man who shatters conventional wisdom, John Stossel.
People who run American public schools keep saying, we don't have enough money. It's why we can't teach some of the kids to read. It's why math scores are low. Give us more money. But joining us now is a man who, without any extra money, in fact, with less money, turned one of the worst schools in America, people called it the zoo, into one of the best. His name is Ben Chavis. Also joining us is Andrew Colson, director of the Cato Institute Center for Education Freedom. But, Ben, let me start with you. How did you turn the worst school in America, not the worst, it's in one of the worst in California, where you are, you're in Oakland, to one of the best?
Well, it was the worst in the city of Oakland, and they were just sitting around playing minority. They were teaching blacks and Indians how to be victims. And we went in and we taught them math, and we taught them reading. Instead of an hour every day, they would sit and build their self-esteem about being darkies. I'm a darky. I don't need no more self-esteem. So what we did is we taught them math.
But wait a sec. The teachers teach them math.
They do?
Public school teachers are trained to teach math and reading.
They do?
Yes. Come on.
Not in Oakland, California. 96% of the white, Chinese, and blacks and Mexicans are failing algebra in the 10th grade. Now, 96% are failing, 4% are passing. Somebody's not teaching.
All right, well, let's break it down. Why'd they call your school the zoo?
Because it was total chaos. And when you'd go in, there was no structure, there was no discipline, and the kids ran it.
The state was about to close it. They brought you in. You raised the test scores. I think we have a graph of that, from among the worst to last week you were number 4. I think this week you are at the top. And one thing you did was fire teachers.
Oh, yes. A lot of teachers should be fired.
You fired some teachers on the first day of school.
Yeah, she was pretty bad. She couldn't follow basic directions. As I said earlier, she had gone through a college of education program. We did our training. I go in, the kids are running around. She's supposed to be teaching math, and she's playing games. I'm concerned about the students, not the teachers.
So you know enough on the first day to fire her, and because it's a charter school, you're allowed to do that?
Yes. When the students are not working or engaged in a lesson and there's chaos in the classroom, I think the teacher should be fired.
If you miss school, you must attend Saturday.
Every kid who misses school must attend Saturday school and work.
And you're doing this because California gave you much more money per student?
It's very interesting. We're the highest performing middle school in California, and we get the least amount of money.
They give you $8,000 per student versus $16,000 for the rest of the state.
And we whip their butts.
Well, how do you give me examples of that?
Every senior in our school takes AP Calculus. Every senior. 71% of every senior in our school passed AP Calculus national exam last year. If you took every black in Oakland who passed AP Calculus, they came from our school. Almost 40 other high schools, not one black passed AP Calculus. Every Mexican in Oakland who took, or Latin, whatever you want to call them, the Raza, Chicano, everyone who took AP Calculus came from our school except for one. So we're doing something right.
And your class sizes are no smaller. They say the teachers must be state certified. Many of yours are not.
No, we look for smart people. And then
I assume state certified means smart.
I don't know what state certified means, but it has nothing to do with being smart. Appears to be dumb to me. When only 96% of the kids in Oakland Unified are failing with certified teachers, there's something wrong.
So I understand why you wrote a book, and it was titled Crazy Like a Fox, because that's how you come across. You're a lesson for others on how well you've done. And yet the schools say, we need more money. What's your response to that?
Well, you know my line. If you gave public schools all the money in the world, it wouldn't be enough. More money is the biggest myth, the biggest lie in America.
President Obama just signed another so-called stimulus bill with more money, $10 billion for teachers, a special bailout for them because teachers so need that. His education secretary said schools really need more money. Districts around the country, he claimed, have been cutting for 5, 6, 7 years in a row. Many of them are through fat, through flesh, into bone. Bone. Wow. Andrew Coulson of the Cato Institute. What are the facts?
Yeah, that's just crazy talk. There have been about 7 districts out of 14,000 nationwide that have cut spending for 7 years in a row. There's hardly a district in the country that's doing this. And on average, they're spending $1,000 more per pupil now than they did 5 years ago. So the idea that we're shortchanging the schools is just insane.
When they talk about budget cuts, they're really talking about, well, we cut it from what our wildest dreams for next year were.
Yeah, I like to call those unicorn budgets. Most of us, when we talk about budget cuts, what we're talking about is how much we spent last year, how much we can afford to spend this year. If we're spending less than we did last year, well, that's a budget cut. This is not how public school districts typically work. Usually what they're saying is, at the beginning of the budget process, we came up with a magical unicorn budget which had all the spending we really wanted. And then, if we didn't get all that, whatever we did get, we consider that a cut from our original plan. So that's why you can have all these districts claiming to be cutting their budgets, when really, if you look at their spending over time, their spending is going up.
And over this past 7 years, when the education secretary says they're cutting again and again to the bone, in fact, student spending, per student in spending increased 18%?
Yeah, it's about that. And if you carry it back, I mean, this isn't just a recent phenomenon. If you carry it back all the way to, say, 1970, we're spending 4 times as much now for a public school education, K through 12, as we did then.
So we hear the schools are starving, and we have a teacher in the audience who was telling me the teachers struggle. We're spending 4 times as much as we used to. That's adjusted for inflation.
Yeah, it was $38,000 in 1970, and that's in 2009 dollars. And it was $150,000 last year for the total cost of a K-12 education. It's 4 times higher, and unfortunately, that hasn't translated into better achievement. You know that beautiful curve of Ben's kids, the achievement going up year after year? We've got a flat line for the nation as a whole. The public school achievement has not been going up at the end of high school.
We have a flat line for achievement. We certainly don't have a flat line for what we spend.
No, there's this big divergence. It's like a big V as the spending just goes up and up every year, and achievement just languishes. In fact, we're a little lower now in science than we were in 1970 in achievement.
Well, I thank you, Andrew Coulson, and Ben Chavis. Please stay with us, because later in the show we'll let the audience grill you, and we have some people who do not agree. When we return, another success story. This one is not just one school like Ben's. It's much bigger. It's now the fastest growing segment of American education. We'll show it to you when we return.